If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, buy our books, New Moon Magic and Missing Witches, and our deck of oracles, the Missing Witches deck of oracles, or join the coven. Find everything you need to know at missingwitches.com.
You aren't being a proper woman, therefore you must be a witch.
Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch.
You must be a witch.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Missing Witches Podcast. I'm Amy T. We have arrived at LAMMAS, that halfway point between summer solstice and autumn equinox. The world feels like a lot. So many of us are trying to process personal loss, trauma, and grief in the face of global loss, trauma, and grief. The last thing I want for us is for any of us to drag our old wounds into the autumn or let the bad stuff that happened stop us from making great stuff happen. We need to learn how to make our way through our pain and find a way to transform that journey to feed our future. So, I put together this panel of folks to help us discover systems for transmuting trauma. Each of our guests today has managed to transmute trauma into something better in their own way, because everyone's experience is different. So rather than giving you one answer and hoping it works out, today we'll get 3 different perspectives to help us understand that healing or moving on happens in a multitude of ways. What works for us may not work for you, but together, hopefully, we can find something that works for everyone. Our guests today are Diandra Ford-Wing and Amy Miranda and Kristen Renaud. I want to give you a brief introduction to center you all in this space. After losing her aunt and mother in quick succession, Diandra found hope in cardinals. Of her book, Redbird, she said, I hope to offer solace to those navigating the challenging waters of loss and grief, providing a safe haven amidst their emotional storms. In finally being able to name her trauma of CSA and seek justice, Amy Miranda was able to bring her spiritual practice and her creative practice together with what we've forgotten. And after surviving a mass shooting in 2021, Kristen Renaud found her way through painting and gardening, which begat Lightning Struck Gardens. And each purchase of an item from LSG helps to fund her nonprofit and provide emotional support to survivors of gun violence. Pain happens in 8 billion different ways, and healing happens in 8 billion different ways. So let's get a look at 3 of those ways today. Welcome, Diandra, Kristen, and Amy. Yay! Thank you so much for being in circle with me today. I think our listeners already know a bit about Kristen and Amy Miranda, so let's start with you, Diandra Ford-Wing. I gave a brief introduction, but I want to know, what do you want our listeners to know about you today? Who are you today?
Oh, today I am someone who's grateful to be here and amongst this panel, because honestly, I never thought that this would be my path. You know what I mean? I never thought that my mom would die. I knew she was going to. I had prepared myself years, prior to her death, because I just felt it coming. But she wasn't sick. She was just living life. But after my aunt passed away in the Gambia, she was never the same. Her grief really took over her body, and it took an emotional toll on me to see her, not being who she was, this jovial, wonderful spirit. And it really made me think about just the longevity of our lives on this planet. And I said, I have to write this down. I have to do something with these feelings and these thoughts and this grief and all of these things. And so that spawned Redbird.
And
That's why I'm
Redbird is like a memoir.
yeah,
You
it's a
want to talk
memoir.
about it just a little bit?
Yeah, so it basically takes you through the present, which was my aunt passing. She passed first, and then 14 months later, my mom then passed. Um, then we talk about the birth of my great niece a month to the day that my mom died. And it
Mm.
was just, oh my goodness, it was so ethereal. It was so just out of left field that my niece then now has a baby, and that baby is basically my mom.
Huh.
Her mannerisms, her everything that she does, it's just my mom. But the book itself covers, of course, the loss and the grief and all that jazz, but it also talks about my upbringing as a military brat and as someone who dealt with a lot of body image issues and was bullied when I was a kid. So I talk about that a little bit. And it's just, full circle for me. It's just a full circle moment.
And let's keep going around the circle again and again and again. Kristen,
Yeah.
Kristen, who are you today? What are you today? What do you want our listeners to know about you today?
Oh, great question. Um, I am enough today. That took me a while to be able to say, and I'm gonna say it again. I am enough today.
I don't know
Um,
if you can see Kristen, but Mel is in the gallery just fist pumping when you said you were enough. Yes, you're enough every
Thank you
day.
for it. I am an artist, a writer, a survivor of gun violence. It doesn't define me, but it is part of me. Um, And I'm doing really well today. I am so excited to be on this podcast. I am so excited to be talking with all of you. Um, this is, Deandra, you mentioned coming full circle. This is really beautiful full circle moment for me. I found your podcast and started listening to it in like depths of my PSD. And so it's really full circle to be here talking about transmuting PTSD. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
And thank you for reminding me that this podcast is a tool that we use to help each other.
Mhm.
Amy Miranda, who
Hi.
are you today? What do you want our listeners to know about you today?
I'm standing in joy today. I feel the same. I'm just so grateful to be here on this podcast with all of you and standing in joy. And I think a lot of times when we talk about trauma, which because of my Canadian accent sometimes sounds like drama, which they can feel the same thing, feel the same way. Um, but I think a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission in the darkness and the shadow of grief or surviving a violent event, to be able to actually like stand in the joy and to and that's a big part of who I am in my practice of remembering, and I think that's part of what we it's demonized a lot, right? Remembering, especially a lot of us that live with CPTSD or PTSD, because memories haunt us, and they show up when we least expect it through like smell or sound or. And for me, the remembering has been one big transmutation where, what we've forgotten was kind of a double entendre about like what we remember, repressed memories, things like that. Um, I got hit in the face with trauma early on in a bunch of different ways. Um, and I think, luckily, that transmutation of, what is a physical um, repercussion, I think, of experiencing, a violence to the spirit in any capacity, being able to take that and actually, transmute that was very Canadian too, but transmute
Joy.
the, I see the comedy is important, but transmuting, the shadow into light and correlating those two things, right? That there is no shadow without light and that there is no light, without shadow. So, and I think that's part of the journey of that transmutation. So I'm coming today with the joy and the humor, um, and the sacred. I think my teacher says, pain is transmuting it to holy wisdom.
That's what
And
we're trying to do here today.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And what you said about, there is no light without darkness, no darkness without light. And I have this quote from Diandra, so maybe we can come together on this because I think sometimes about, did you ever see that movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? Y'all,
Hmm.
where like
Mhm.
you can erase a person from your memory, like your ex or someone who is hurt. And I fantasize about removing people from my brain.
Mm.
But then I remember, like I am what I am because of everything. It's not
Hmm.
just the good things that me. And when I'm happy with who I am, which is today, then I can almost be grateful. But Deandra, you wrote, to fully embrace the warmth of love, one must also navigate the sharp edges of heartache.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on that idea for us for a second?
Definitely. I feel just as, Amy just said, I can't, I couldn't be the person I am today with all of the hardships and all of the bad things that may have happened to me. So I think, and this is just, my take, I think that having these experiences shapes you in such a way that you can't help but to grow. You can't help but to be better. So you have to take the bitter with the sweet and get through this thing called life. That is exactly what I meant when I wrote those words.
And most of our listeners self-identify as witch. So
Okay.
I was really drawn to this idea that birds can help us heal, and I think that our
Yes.
our listeners will be too. So talk a little bit about the red bird of the title, the actual bird.
So yeah, the saying goes that when the red bird appears, angels are near. And my family and we had a connection with the Redbird. I don't know when that started happening, but I do remember back in 2019, we were at my papa's funeral and we had gone back to his house to have, fellowship, a repast, all that stuff. And we were just eating, sitting around talking about him. And my niece looked out the window and she's like, "Hey, you guys, there's a cardinal out there." And my mom was like, "That's nothing but Papa telling us he made it to the other side and he's cool. He's good." So after that moment, I went looking for red birds, and you can't do that. You have to be in the moment. You have to live your life and then be blessed with the presence of said bird. But it was interesting because I did not see the red bird when my mom died initially, but I did see it the morning that my aunt passed away. And I was driving to my mom's house to go console her. And I'm on this like rural road, just like nobody's out there but me. It's like dawn, breaking dawn. And I see a flash of red just fly over my windshield. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, is that my aunt?" And I couldn't wait to get to my mom's house to tell her I saw a red bird. I think it was Sean. I think it was her. And I told her, and she was like, "It was." And I said, "See, like this is the kind of thing that when you're in the deep throes of just the grief, when you see something that you can resonate with, that you can connect with, and it is assigned a symbol for you. When you see it, whatever that symbol is, whatever that hummingbird or bird or could be a butterfly, whatever it is it could be, you feel that much closer to the ones that you've lost."
You use the word assigned. Who's making the assignment? Is it spirit?
We,
Is it
yeah, it's a
us?
spirit. It's us. It's everything. And, we never had a talk like, "Okay, guys, this is our family mascot." It wasn't like that. It was more of like, "Oh, it just came to be." And everybody, when I wrote the book, I was like, "I'm naming it Redbird." And my sisters and brother were like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." Like there was no like doubt. There was no question because they knew the connection that our family had with this particular bird.
And
Yeah.
what if no birds choose us? Can we choose something ourselves?
You can. I was talking to this lady on this podcast a couple of days ago, and she said that her mom sends her coins, pennies, nickels, whatever. If you see a stray penny on the floor, you pick it up that was meant for you. That was a sign that I'm still here with you in some capacity. They're going to put them in front of you. The spirit world will put whatever it is that you assign for you and your family in front of you at odd times or when you most need it.
And I think part of it could be like what we've forgotten too, you know.
Yes.
I had a friend who passed, and we remembered after his passing that he had said, "It's so weird. I'm always finding dimes everywhere. Like, is it just because they're small and so
See?
they fall through pockets?" And then we
Yes.
all started finding dimes all
Yes.
over the place. And to this day, you know, this was 15 years ago that this happened. But I think of him
Wow.
every time I find a dime in my house, on the ground,
That's
wherever.
beautiful.
So
Yeah.
And it
sometimes,
comforts
yeah,
you. It
yes,
comforts you, doesn't it?
Well, and it's
yeah.
pennies from heaven, right? There's a reason that they say
Yes.
that, right? And I think that like that feeling of connection through the veil, and that people, I always call those breadcrumbs, right? Which relates to
Hmm.
birds as well. But this idea of that people, even though their, ego self may not have known what was coming, their higher self left clues.
Yes.
And that's, I think that's been such a big part of transmutation too, is that, and when I wanted to just reflect on what you both said, this idea of that it's part of the fabric of who we are.
Hmm.
But the thing I wanted to say about that is there's intention to the recipe, right? Like when we are creating something, we add things in a certain order, and spirit, energy, whatever we want to call it, transmutation, alchemy, that's the same thing. You add it in an order, and there's a thoughtfulness to how it goes. And of course, like I didn't get that. They always say like you find meaning later, but once I reflected, and took myself out of the, breakdown that is, a traumatic event, being able to go up and sort of do the crime scene investigation, so to speak, and look at what was going on and how it happened, and giving ourselves the reverence for how it was survived. I mean, I lost my best friend 2 days before my 19th birthday, and I thought that was my biggest trauma. And the
Yeah.
side effect of that was like, I'm going to go and, because I thought the recipe was, I'll go get successful and then everything's going to be okay. And then, of course, it was like, when will the fire be?
Yeah.
And, it was such a transmutation agent to be able to look at it and go, okay, what does this mean? And then, Amy, what I liked about what you said about erasing it, I do think there's a way to be able to do that. And not in a way that negates the experience, right? In terms of like shamanic healing, soul retrieval, ceremony, to be able to go and bring back power that may have been lost due to trauma, and not to bring back the power, bring back the trauma, but to bring back the power,
And that's,
energetically, right?
yeah,
And that's how we
Yeah.
erase it.
yeah. But it's not an erasure, right? It's a
It's
transformation.
a transmutation. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's a
yeah.
transmutation.
So
And
we,
giving energy the space to do that. And like, I mean, that was part of my original journey on that path of like, how do you deal with a trauma this deep?
Yeah.
That, as a lot of CSA survivors would say, it's, you feel dirty in places soap doesn't reach. What
hmm
do you do? And of course, I dragged myself. Those are people who know me from then. Like I literally dragged myself to find options, and ended up finding shamanic healing by magic, by following breadcrumbs. But it was a vibration that needed to change in my body, and
Hmm.
giving it the space to have that happen, and to giving, alchemy or transmutation, right, the room that it needs to be able to do that, just like a recipe, just like any concoction. So I just wanted to say that because I loved what you said about it becoming a part of our fabric, connective tissue, but also this idea of being able to erase it by way of transmutation, meaning erase the darkness or the dark, shadowy bits of it, so that when it does come up through memory, we see it as a badge or a tool of, being able to share that with other people. And I always say, Kristen, I loved what you said about it's part of my story. It's not the whole story, but we mention it, I think, at least I do, because that's how I find the others.
Hmm.
Because I was, dragging myself through the darkness for so long because nobody was talking about it. So that was
Yes.
part of the side effect for me of lighting it up, was to be like, okay, I need, to shine a light on this, and like not only my light, but every flashlight we can find. And that's what's happening. I think a lot of what's going on in culture right now, right? We're seeing people aiming their flashlights at this specifically, and it's really important.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I want to return to that storytelling aspect of transformation, transmutation, healing, whatever word you makes sense for you. But first, I want to return to nature and toss this to Kristen. You said in an interview that cycles of nature relate to grief and specifically to your grief. Can you expand on that idea for us?
Yeah. Um, let's see. I look at grief as a spiral. Um, and that's where the cycles of nature overlap with grief for me. So that spiraling piece of it, sometimes you're really close and really tight into the grief, and other times you're really far away from the grief. And other times grief takes you on this pattern. There's a cyclical pattern, my grief at least. I come around to anniversaries and things feel tighter and things feel harder and things feel different around that time. Almost I'm holding my breath. And then it passes and I exhale and there's a little bit more room to breathe. And I think I found that in nature, with especially tracking the seasons and how plants grow throughout the seasons. There's a time for the seed, there's a time to be in your shell, there's a time to be in the darkness. And when seeds pop from their seed and growing, they don't start with the sprout, they don't start growing toward light. They start with their root and they grow in the darkness, and then comes the plant. But first, the roots grow down in that darkness that the seed is meant to be in. And so, plants gave me this, nature gave me this model for what to do with my grief, that when it felt suffocating, it felt like, okay, that's okay. I can be in my seed phase. I can retreat into this darkness and know that the darkness was there and supposed to be holding me instead of it being something that I really feared. And there are other times, like right now, I feel like a flower in bloom talking to you about how to transform this. And hopefully this moment sends out seeds that we can all use. And I do that as kind of the spiral, and it allows me a model. I needed a model. I needed a way to find my way through grief, and I found it in plants, and that gave me grace through the model.
And you're also
Yeah, I think that's what I have to say.
yeah, part of your excuse me, part of your work is like group group sessions, talk therapy, as it were.
Yes.
And so I want to ask each of you, Kristen, you have these group sessions. Diandra, Amy, you both wrote books. Why was telling this story, and Amy, you already touched on this a bit, and telling your own story and then allowing other people to tell their stories. Like, how is storytelling a healing practice? I guess is my question. If Kristen, you want to start, and then Deandra, Amy, jump in anytime.
Yeah. Yeah. So like Amy said, I lead support groups for gun violence survivors. They're about 8 weeks. They're 8 week sessions, and they start with an educational piece in the beginning, where we go over what grief looks like, what trauma looks like, what comes up with trauma and grief, what it does to your body, what it does to your thoughts, what can come of it. And one of the sessions we actually go through is funny. We were talking about meaning making, and that's one of the sessions. And so being able to provide this informational piece, where I didn't have all the information at first. I had to go find it in bits and pieces in books by talking to other people and feeling out myself and my own journey, and finding these support groups where someone came in and shared educational piece and then overlaid their personal story onto that educational piece really helped to it just helped to open up my world of healing and seeing that there was someone else going through that. Um, I like to think of it as a lighthouse, is a beacon of light, and sharing your story. It might not be the brightest light in the sky, it might not be lighting up the sea, but that one light does make it navigable. That one light does change the situation. And so I think that that's the power of storytelling and the power of sharing it. Um, I don't think we talk about it enough in society, and I think that that leads to it being this mysterious process that we all have to go through all on our own, and that's not really true. Um, so I welcome support group survivors. I lead my own groups now as just the most radical thing I can think to do right now. Mass shootings aren't stopping, unfortunately, and so there has to be something for what's going on. And I think that just talking and sharing our stories, outside of bringing it to people in the media or politicians, but just one-on-one facilitating healing is so important to me.
Yeah, I remember during the pandemic, and we we as a coven, we talked about this a lot, that we had this collective trauma, this collective experience, but that we weren't doing any collective grieving. And I think that that's still true, that we're still not doing that. And I think you hit it, Kristen, like we don't know how often.
Yeah.
We don't know how to do that. And that's part of why I'm personally here today. Like I want to learn how to do that. But we'll return to the storytelling piece. Diandra, like, why did this have to be a book?
It was on my heart. It started off not as a book, just to be completely honest. I was just writing a journal entry, and I kept going back to it and adding things to it and cleaning it up. And I was like, what am I doing? This is just a journal. Like no one's going to read this but me. And then I heard a voice say, maybe they should read it. If you build it, they will come. No, I'm just kidding. But
But
no,
you're also not
seriously.
kidding.
And I'm not. But the thing that really got me going was just the possibility of someone picking up this book and being inspired, being like, feeling better about their situation. Because I'm telling you, it has not been the path, the road, the whatever to grief has not been a crystal stair. I mean, it has been worn down because I keep going back to the same places that I'm revisiting when I think about grief. And I don't know necessarily why I wanted it to be this little book, this memoir, but it just shaped up to be that way. And I'm grateful for it. And when I decided that I was going to publish this book, I did it in such a short amount of time. It took me from start to finish about 11 months to write the thing and do the editing, find a publisher. I mean, it was heaven sent. I think it was meant to be.
I think sometimes the universe, when it's pleased with our actions, it makes the
Yeah.
road a little smoother and
Easier.
faster.
Yes, yes. So I had no qualms about, working on the book because I knew that ultimately it was going to get read by someone, not just my family, but someone's going to read it. I don't care if it's at a freaking half price books and you spot the book. I pick it up. It's good. It'll help you, you know? So I really, just like, Kristen here, I'm an artist too, and I paint and I do all these things, but that wasn't calling to me when my mom died. What was calling to me was the writing aspect of it. My mom was an English teacher and she loved literature. That was her life for, 40 plus years. And I know that she would be tickled pink that I wrote this book in memory of her and for me and for my aunt. And I just know that she's proud. I
Yeah,
know that she is.
she's tickled red, not pink.
Yes,
She's tickled
right.
red. Amy, I know that you have something to say about this. But first, I just want to read something from What We've Forgotten. This is your book that goes with your deck. And listeners, all of this stuff will be in the show notes, of course. This is from like the very beginning, but it was so resonant. And I think listeners, like, Anyway, I once thought I was too broken to be fixed. I tried to hide it from everyone with cool outfits, addictions, money, and makeup. I ran such a good show that most people never had any idea that there was anything much going on behind the curtain. I'd had too much trauma to be able to feel or to recognize any real magic that was running through me. I was a vessel who'd run aground. Progress was stalled. I was stuck. And much like humanity right now, I was in need of a major overhaul. I think like too broken to be fixed, stuck, run aground. I mean, if I had to count all of the people that I love that feel that way, I wouldn't be able to. It feels infinite. Listeners, there is no such thing as too broken to be fixed. I want to tell you that right now. You are not broken. You may be run aground, but there are ways to haul yourself back into the sea. Amy, Miranda, can you talk about that feeling of just, Kristen said she finally feels like she's enough. And I think all of us have had those moments of being stuck, of being run aground, of feeling like there was no way out. And Amy, I see your face getting emotional already, so take a deep
Yeah, thanks
breath.
for making me cry. You sure?
Yeah, yeah,
Nice
yeah.
try. Nice
Didn't
try,
didn't
Amy
take
T.
long. But
Thank
like,
you.
I want our listeners to know that the four of us sitting here aren't special in the way that we're all very special, but
Yeah, we're
in the
nice.
in
Very
the way
nice.
that we manage to claw our way out of our grief and our
Oh yeah, it
trauma.
wasn't elegant. I mean, that's the thing, right? It wasn't elegant. It was ugly. It was, and a lot of people who know me from before I named my trauma. I mean, I was damaged, right? I call it in the book the trauma shed, right? I wasn't just smoking out back. I was living there. And I do want to say, just to line it up a little, I still, to transmute, I still like makeup, okay? So I still enjoy makeup. I like adornments. But to really kind of trace the thread there in terms of too broken to be fixed, I mean, for me, I had my entire life collapsed like scaffolding, right? I mean, it was like everything I thought I knew about everything was not true, right? And I mean, my abuser was my father. So, and I only talk about that in the book once. And I want to say, if you're feeling too broken to be fixed, or you feel like you need a toe and you don't know where to start, I mean, that's why I wrote this book. So if you need it, get in touch with me, right? I took the rights back this year for that reason. If you need it, get in touch with me. This is not about money. This is about life, right? And this is about survival. And I wrote this book because I didn't want anyone to have to go through what I went through trying to figure out what to do about, the entire foundation that I had known falling out from under me. But I finally, and what the transmutation of that was it was like I got a chapter back in a book, right? Where I was like, oh. And those people who are close to me and my family, they know that, I mean, when I disclosed to them about what had gone on, they went, why didn't we figure this out? And I'm very lucky. I mean, I call, and this is where I want to start by responding to this amazing question after you made me cry, was talking about finding the others. And I am big on support groups too. I want to give a shout out to the Remarkables, the original founding members of the Remarkables, or what I call CSA survivors. We are like superheroes, and when we transmute that trauma, we become a power like nobody's ever seen. And one of my clients said to my teacher once, how is Amy like this? And he said, sometimes this is the side effect. And so what was really integral to me was to find a new foundation, right? Once it crumbles, you need a new one. So that's where the adventure begins. And that's why my book is called An Interdimensional Adventure, to remember the wonder within, because it starts with our ancestors. It starts with those stories. So I had to follow the line. And I mean, I'm an executive producer by trade. I'm an artist. So I had to tell the story of the book through an adventure. Goonies. I mean, and I talk about that in the book, right? It's like Goonies never say die. So that's how the book begins, right? You're being invited on an adventure. And this is what a healing journey is. It's an adventure. It's an intention-driven scavenger hunt to figure out what happened and to rebuild a foundation, which for me, and spoiler in the book, when I told my grandmother that I was remarkable, my mom's mom, she said me too. And she was 86 years old. And she had never met another survivor.
Or one that said it out loud.
And so for me, and I had, questioned even telling her. So I brought over some pastries. I was like, we're gonna have a nice chat about childhood sexual abuse. This is gonna be great. And so
Jesus
I'm
Christ,
joking.
Amy.
I know, right? But that's how I was, right? I was like, this is what we're gonna have to do. And she said, me too, right? And so that changed everything because then I looked at the physiology of it and I was like, oh, my mom was an egg. I was an egg. And my grandma, whoa, right? And then I looked at the other side of the line and I was like, okay, what went on there? Right? And it was like, oh, okay, wait a minute. I'm part Puerto Rican, part Filipino. Miranda's not even our real last name. It was given to us by colonizers. And I'm like, no wonder my father's a predator. So for me, it was about looking at the entire circle and then going, as Kristen said, really small, starting really small. And those survivors who have gone through the journey of disclosing or remembering, or even, any trauma that you have experienced and you are aware of, you usually keep your circle pretty small at first. So that's part of it, is rebuilding the foundation. So everyone who's dealing with survivors right now, or anyone who's in trauma, that's why you're feeling isolated. But the first ingredient, we talked about ingredients, to add back into the recipe is the others like you. So finding them through community, people always say to me, why do you talk about this so much? And at first, when I started talking about my trauma, everyone told me not to. There's a lot of people who messaged me, and a lot of people said, don't talk about this. Are you sure? Like, you think this is an entertaining story for me to tell? This is awful. So, and if I was going to choose something, I mean, people who know me, I would be more colorful than this. So I think this is the kind of thing where you have to own it. And then by part of owning it, you find the others. And then for me, it was about getting big and screaming it so that we don't lose anybody else, because I don't want to lose anybody else. Because the power that comes from surviving this, I always say to my clients and my friends and my family, it's like badges, right? They're badges of honor. And those of us who have survived these kinds of trials and tribulations should be respected just like a 4-star general, right? So that's, I think, part of that transmutation of using, and I love using fire and spiritual light, but to really light ourselves up. And that's something people can do right now. If you're feeling too heavy, imagine that as you're breathing in, that you're not just breathing in air, but you're breathing in light. And just imagine filling your own vessel. There's enough for everyone, okay? You're not going to have to pay anybody back for it. It's not transactional. So, and that is a start, right? So, and use your social media channels, right? Use ones that are anonymous if you need to, like Reddit or things like that, where you can find the others. So, because that's where the power is going to be found, right?
You reminded me of an incident in my life. I had a very bad mental health episode. I ended up dropping out of school. And when it finally came to light, it was the end of the school year and I had nothing to show for it. And I remember my mother saying, like, how did I not know that this was happening? And I said, because I lied,
Yeah.
because I kept it secret. And if you ask me a direct question, I lied. Like, how were you supposed to know?
Yeah.
Like, I just, because of, like, you're talking about, like, the shame
Shame.
and the,
Yeah.
all of this. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't know how to talk about it. And so I just said nothing. But sort of what we're all saying is that that's how we find each other. That's how we help each other.
Yeah.
That's how we help ourselves. I think there's that sort of like when something happens and there's that fork, and some people are like, well, this happened to me, so I don't care if it happens to other people. Like, everyone should suffer like I do. And then there's that other fork that's like, this happened to me, and I don't ever want anything like this to happen to anyone else ever again. And I'm so glad that the three of you have chosen that right hand fork where I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to inspire other people to talk about it, to be honest. And we can do that kind of collective grief thing that we're talking about
And look how we found each other, right? It's also how I met
magically.
my husband. Like it's the best repurposing of the poison to medicine, right? It's the best. Anyway, I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Always, always a pleasure, my darling. So this one's going out to the listeners, and I want an answer from each and every one of you, whoever it comes up for first, please. Was there a catalyst? Was there like a signature event that snapped you out of the pit, as I call it, and into action? Is there something you remember that was like a waking up moment, or was it just that slow outward spiraling, or a combination of these things? Let's start with Diandra. Like, do you remember the moment that you managed to crawl out of the pit and what the rope was that pulled you out?
Honestly, Redbird was the rope. Um, that was my reason for getting out of it. That was my reason to keep going and to do more and to continue writing. I really don't think that I am even halfway through that tunnel, and I'm still using Redbird as a lifeline. But eventually, I will get to the spot in the tunnel where I can actually see the light at the end of it. And then hopefully then I can let go of, Redbird and that rope and just, I've been tethered to it for the entirety of 2 years, writing it, publishing it, marketing it, doing all this stuff. And now I want to focus on what it is that's gonna make me truly happy. I don't know what that looks like. I mean, every day is different. Every day I either have a breakdown of some sort, but I can feel myself inching and inching towards that light at the end of everything.
And you did something that most people either don't have the courage or, dare I say, privilege to do, is that you took a break. You
Yeah, I quit my
stopped.
job. I did. I had to because I worked in corporate America and I've been in tech sales for 25 years and I had just started working for this company. I was 6 months in when my mom died. And I just, I cannot reckon why there's a 5 day bereavement allotment. Like, what is that? Do you not understand that this woman, my mother, has been a part of my life since inception, since the very beginning? And I just didn't feel it was proper to go back to work. And I didn't feel like I was ready to even. So I quit. I called my boss like a couple of days after the funeral and was like, hey, you got a minute? Here's what's going on. Today's my last day. Take care. It was just, I knew that I needed to do it. And I'm so blessed that I was able to, have the resources and, roof over my head and all these things to be able to do that. It's a blessing.
And I know you're working on a follow-up to
I
Redbird.
am. Hmm.
So the story continues.
Oh, the saga continues. It's going to be all about just, once that red bird has been identified and the grief is now settling down, what's next? It's either going to be a second edition or a sequel to Redbird. So I don't know which one yet. It's not shaken out either way just yet. But let me get a little further along and I'll keep you posted.
Okay, I think I know the working title, but I won't spoil it.
You can
Yeah.
spoil it. It's okay. Spoil it. Spoil it.
So, Awakening of the Bluebird
Yes, that is
is the
it.
working title. And
Yeah, and the
so,
reason
yeah.
the reason why is because we talked about the red bird, right? But bluebirds, they are such a gift. While the red bird here is just hearkening our familial past and people that we've loved that have since passed on, the bluebird is all about seeing the positive in everyday life. And actually, it's a gift. I work in sales. So whenever at the end of the quarter we get a big deal that we didn't see coming, that was forecasted, but we didn't think it was going to come at the end of the quarter, that's called a bluebird. It's just a bluebird. It's like a gift from the heavens.
You're a gift from the heavens.
Oh, Well,
Kristen,
thank you.
Kristen, was there a catalyst? Was there a rope that pulled you out of the pit, or was it a spider web full of knots?
Oof. It was both. Um, it was it was a grueling process. It took me years. I'm still in that process. But I feel like I would take so many little steps forward and figure out what I wanted, and then I'd have a wave crash over me, and I would kind of retreat again, which is where that spiraling feeling kind of like I would grow, and then I would retreat back in, and then I would grow again and retreat back in. And I guess for me, one of the biggest catalysts was I won a grant to start the nonprofit that I run right now. I was
Hold on, hold
just
on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Wait, wait, wait. The catalyst couldn't have been that you won a grant because you had to apply for that grant. What was the
well,
catalyst to
actually,
applying for the grant? Or was it like bestowed upon you in some magical grant land?
it was pretty much bestowed upon me. The people at every town where I originally started volunteering came to me and said that they had an idea that they wanted to bring more of these support groups that I had been volunteering and running into local communities. And they said that I was the better co-facilitators that I had a real passion for, and they had selected me amongst several other people. But the offering was there. There was the money. There was nonprofit. There was the leading support groups. They would help me through if I wanted. My rope kind of came from other people in that way. I It took me a while. I sat on it for a long time because I wasn't even sure it was for me. Being in shooting, as I had said, being enough, being the shooting really lowered my self-esteem, incompetent, everything because I was so scared and so fearful and traumatized. And so when people thought I was good at something, that was kind of a shock for me. Uh,
But that's
but
that
yeah.
the universe is pleased piece, right? You started
Yes,
volunteering
yes.
and mhm.
Yes. So yeah, I think it was a mixture of both, really, for me. Yeah.
Amy Miranda, did you have a catalyst?
Yeah, I think there was a series of unfortunate events, that led to me realizing that I was the common denominator, right? So I think that was probably where the catalyst became really clear that, all of my life I had thought, it was these other people that were causing these problems for me. And then finally realizing, like, well, I think these people had something in common, and that person was me. Because these people didn't know each other, but they had me in common. So really looking at sort of the archetypes that I had invited into my circle and looking at sort of, where I was being of service and looking at the patterns. And I think that was the sort of zoom out moment for me where I was like, oh, and again, that was part of this sort of fact finding or crime scene investigation that we do, right? In retrospect, I just made it a process. I made it work. As people who know me and have read the book or done the retreat or work with me, they're like, this is very much like a game. I'm like, of course I gamified healing. I mean, I think that was part of the adventure for me was looking at, there were all these different things and I had had this, tremendous sort of breakdown and then it was about trying to give people some kind of map out of it, right? And, literally there's a map in the book. But I think that was sort of, that was the catalyst for me of really looking at myself in the mirror and going, oh, I think it's you. And then looking at again the foundation, right? And having those hard conversations with myself and others, right? Of like atonement and like all the things that come with trauma, right? All the things that come with trauma.
Kristen, I don't remember if it was you or Zoe Flowers who said grief is a portal. And at least it can be a portal. It can be a thing that we can walk through to arrive in a different place. I see you smiling and nodding. Do you want to expand on the idea?
Yeah, I think grief is a portal. I think I think the hard part and what makes grief feel and trauma feel so hard is that sometimes you don't get a choice. You kind of get sucked through that portal. But you have the choice how you react to it. And I know it sounds incredibly simple, and it took me a really long time to get there. But grief is the portal in terms of our choice, of how we react to being pulled through in that new transition. Um, yeah, yeah, it's a totally different place, but it's a portal.
Listeners, again, I want you to understand that I'm here with three people who have been through some shit, but they refused to stay in the shit. And like we said at the jump, the last thing that I ever want in this world is for the bad things that happen to prevent us from making great things happen. And all three of these people, Kristen, Diandra, Amy, Miranda, have taken the bad thing and forced its shape, transformed it, and transmuted it into a good thing, a thing that helps, a thing that helps themselves and helps other people. So I want to know from you all before we come to the very tragic ending of this conversation. We may have to make this a LAMMAS tradition of coming together so that we can leave before we get to the dark half of the year, that we can leave some stuff behind. But let's start with Diandra. What is your advice for people? And I know y'all are out there, and I have been you, and I get it, who feel still stuck in the pit. What's the bumper sticker that we can slap on ourselves?
Well, my advice, and I don't want this to be trite, but when I was going through, my struggles, especially with my mom and my aunt passing so, close together, I I just really, really hope that everyone that listens to this particular session, this podcast, understands that grief looks differently for everybody. And it sounds different for everybody. It feels different for everybody. I just was able to compartmentalize my grief in a way that I shifted focus away from the grief and focused on the work of doing the work, of writing the book, and really sitting with the grief in my introspection of said grief. So, I mean, I honestly, I hope that anybody that's listening knows that you can do it your way. Do it however it makes you feel comfortable, however it makes you get up in the morning and sleep okay at night. I didn't sleep for a while after my mom passed. And the day that I finished the book, the finishing of the editing and all that stuff, I slept so well. I slept like a baby, and it was the much needed sleep that I needed to just feel like a human being again. Because what grief does is it takes away the part of you that is deeply feeling. And we all know that we have to die at some point. And my mom always said that there's not much any of us does alone in this world except for die. And I really, really just hope that everybody understands that grief is cyclical. You'll have your ups, your downs, and you'll bring it all back around again, and it just ebbs and flows. So that's my parting shot.
Amy, Miranda, any piece of advice you want to add to that? I know I saw you nodding in agreement quite heavily with everything Diandra and Kristen were saying, so you're muted, babe.
Of course, that's I see. I'm trying to be polite, so I don't yell as a reaction to everyone. Yeah, great,
Yeah.
yeah. I think, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, turning back around, turning back around. But I think this idea of it, healing is cyclical, right? And seeing it as a lot of people say, well, I thought it was more healed than this. And I'm like, what? That's not a measure while we're alive. That's not what we're doing, right? It's like, are you a step ahead of where you were yesterday? And that's where I would say, my advice is become an alchemist. Right? As soon as you buckle yourself in and decide to become the alchemist and you're going to take the energy and do something with it instead of being in service to it in the same way, because we're always in service to it. But I think that's the biggest thing, is becoming the alchemist. So that's what I would invite people to do, right? Is to take control and take the reins and see where that's going to take you in terms of the adventure, and that it doesn't have to feel heavy. Right. And I think that's the biggest thing, is making sure. I always say many hands make light work, and I mean that double, right? It's light work to be with others. It's great to be able to open up your heart. But I think, that's what we need right now, is this idea of really becoming our own alchemists and managing our own energy, because that turns everything back around. Turn it back around.
And there's this like, capitalist brainwashing idea that of the quick fix, of the easy money, of the get rich quick scheme. And I think that for a lot of people, if they're taking on this healing journey or communicative journey or whatever journey that they're on, that if I'm not fixed tomorrow, then it didn't work and I quit. But again, all of our guests are here telling you it's a spiral, telling you that you're going to come back around and around and around. And again, Kristen, we follow the wheel of the year here, and we can do that with our grief too, that there will be summer and winter and spring when things grow, and fall when leaves drop from the trees and hit the ground, and that all of that is okay. You're doing amazing, and we love you, and we just want you to do great things. Don't let the bad things that happen stop you from doing something great. And it doesn't have to be tomorrow, and it might not even be next week, but I know we all have greatness in us, and the world wants to bang it out. The world wants us to not be great because it doesn't serve capitalism, because it doesn't serve all of the isms that are coming up in this world. Being well does not serve the industries. Being happy does not serve the industries. So even if you can like take where you are and get mad and just heal as like an anti-capitalist protest.
It's a revolutionary act, right? It's a
It is a
revolutionary
revolutionary
healing.
act to heal. So, everybody, Diandra, the book is Red Wing. How else can our listeners support you, get to know
It's
you, follow you?
Redbird.
Red,
Is my,
because your name is
my
Wing.
last name is Wing. Yeah.
Yeah. Red Bird
It
by
happens
Ford Wing.
all the time. It happens
Yeah,
all the time. It's all
yeah.
good. So they can find it on my website, booksbydiandra.com. It's also on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Book People.
And social media?
My social media, I just have LinkedIn and Instagram. And my Instagram handle is just my name, Diandra Ford Wing, all one word. Same goes for LinkedIn, Diandra Ford Wing, all one word, and you'll find me.
And of course, all of this will be in the show notes. Kristen, Lightning Struck Gardens, I know you don't really have a social media presence, but tell us about the Etsy shop again.
Yeah, so I have an Etsy shop for Lightning Struck Gardens. So every purchase of a native plant or a painted pottery or a seed packet helps us keep the funding alive to send those resources to survivors for free. Right now, my Etsy shop is really low because I'm also taking my products to farmers markets and doing really well there. So that's a little bit shocking, but I'm grateful to have that. So um, if you don't see what you want in the Etsy shop, just message me. I have a lot in stock that I have put up because I keep it for farmers markets. So I'm there to help anyone. And Diandra and Amy, if you would like any seeds or anything to Memorial Gardens, I am very happy to send those along as well. Please just reach out to me. That's a big part of my nonprofit, is creating Memorial Gardens for other people. So
I will say, after we had a landslide that wiped out a piece of my property, and one of the first things that happened after that was that Kristen sent me a big envelope full of seeds to rehabilitate the land that I lost. And I love the it literally, and I love the metaphor of that too. That you're sending out seeds to help people rebuild and memorialize. I love it. Amy Miranda, the book is What We've Forgotten. The card deck is What We've Forgotten. Tell us about how listeners can support your work.
You can support my work by just going to amymiranda.com or whatwe'veforgotten.com, and you can get in touch with me there. Or just imagine sending me a message through the universe. I usually pick those up too, or Dreamtime.
Yeah. And again, I just want to thank you all, Kristen, Diandra, Amy, for role modeling for me and for us that what happens to us doesn't have to bring us down.
Yeah.
That we can take that energy, we can put it into books, we can put it into seeds, we can put it into conversations like this. I just couldn't possibly be more grateful. I feel like we've got so much more to talk about, but let's do this again. Let's do this again and again and again and again and again and again and again until we all are out of the pit, holding hands around the pit and singing
And around the
into it.
world. Around
And
the
around the
world.
world.
Yeah.
Diandra Fordwing, Amy Miranda, Kristen Renaud, please support their work. And you can also support their work by supporting yourself, by lifting yourself, by crawling up out of that pit. Happy LAMMAS. Again, we are at the halfway point between summer solstice and fall equinox. Now is the time. Let it go. Do
Yeah.
not bring it with you into the winter. Now is the time. Let's have a beautiful summer, a joyful summer, and we'll see you all soon. And blessed fucking be.
Blessed
be.
fucking be.
You must be a witch.
If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, buy our books, New Moon Magic and Missing Witches, and our deck of oracles, the Missing Witches deck of oracles, or join the coven. Find everything you need to know at missingwitches.com.